From the examination point of view, if the question is asked, what are the steps in balancing an equation and explain with an example, your answer should be like this. The steps to be written are in 4 steps. The first step will tell that we have to write the correct formula of the chemical equation of each reactant and product. After you write the molecular formula, then we have to start balancing the equation. That is our step 1. Step 1 tells that we have to write the correct chemical formula. Then from step 2, what are we supposed to do? We are supposed to start balancing the equation. So these are the steps. This is how you are supposed to write down. Step 1, write the equation with the correct chemical molecular formula for each reactant and product. After writing the molecular formula of the substance, the equation is to be balanced. For this, we should not touch the ratio of atoms in the molecules of the substances, but we may assign suitable numbers as the coefficients before the formula. We require lowest ratio of coefficient for reactants and products to balance the equation. Step 4 says, verify the equation for the balancing of atoms on both the sides of equation. Let us understand this in detail. Now first example, as per the textbook, we will go with water molecule. To form the water molecule, it is H2 plus O2 gives H2O, right? So we have written step 1. What is the step 1? We should write correct chemical molecular formula, right? So we have written hydrogen plus oxygen. It is giving water molecule. The water molecule formula is H2O. After writing molecular formula, we have to start balancing the equation as per our step 2. In the step 2, it says that we are not supposed to touch the ratios of the atom. Ratios of the atom means here it is O2. Now I cannot come here and put here O2. H2O2, then it will be balanced, but that is not the rule. As per the rule, we are not supposed to. But what we can do, we can add a number here. What we can do, we can add a coefficient number before the molecular formula. Now we have to start. We require step number 3, we require the lowest ratio of coefficient for reactants and products to balance the equation, right? So for this, as earlier I explained, first what are we going to do? We are going to list down the elements that are present in a chemical equation. Here only 2 elements are present, hydrogen and oxygen are present. So let us write what are the number of atoms present on the left hand side and the right hand side. Hydrogen on the left hand side are 2 and on the right hand side also they are 2. Whereas oxygen on the left hand side we see 2 atoms present and on the right hand side it is only 1. So our job to look and increase the number will be on towards the right hand side, that is the product side. So what shall we do here? We have to go ahead and change the number of atoms that are there. So we cannot change. What we can do, we can write down the coefficient. So we have to write the coefficient. So since it is less on towards the right hand side, we will go and write the lowest coefficient number towards the right hand side, that is the product side. So what we can do is we can write here 2, right? Now what happened? The number of atoms of the hydrogen is now 2. But let us see what happened to hydrogen. So from the beginning, hydrogen on the left hand side is 2 and on the right hand side it became 4. How? 2 multiplied by 2 atoms that are present here for the hydrogen. So now the number of atoms for hydrogen is 4, right? The formula unit says that the coefficient we wrote here is 4. So before going and checking for oxygen, let us go ahead and change the number for our hydrogen. What we can do, we cannot change the ratio, but we can change the coefficient. So here let me write down as 2. Now let us see again from the beginning. 2 into 2, the hydrogen. So here also this number changes to 4, and here onto the right hand side it is 2 into 2, so 4 hydrogens. So hydrogens are balanced. Coming to the oxygen, there are 2 atoms. Now here before water molecule we have written 2. This 2 applies even to our oxygen. So here oxygen also is balanced. So what is a balanced equation? 2H2 plus O2 gives 2H2O. This is our balanced equation. So our step number 4 says verify the equation for the balancing of atoms on both the sides of the reaction. We have verified here, so all the steps are done, and this is how you will be writing your answer when asked in the exam about the steps. If the example is given, pick up the example that is given, else you can take your best known chemical equation and explain. For any question, the steps remains the same, only you have to solve in writing the balanced equation. Let us see one more example. Steps in balancing a chemical equation. As we already learned, step 1, 2, 3, 4 remains the same. What is an example that we are dealing with? The steps in balancing an equation, right? So example asked here is combustion of propane. Propane formula is already given. So let us write down C3H8, propane formula. What is happening to propane? It is getting combustion is taking place. Combustion is burning in the presence of oxygen. So let us write down oxygen, right? When combustion is taking place, propane is a colorless, odorless gas often used as heating and cooking fuel. This is the information about the propane, right? Write the chemical equation for the combustion reaction of propane. When propane is burned, what are the products obtained? The products obtained are carbon dioxide and water, right? Now we have to write the steps here in balancing an equation and balance the equation. We have already written steps of balancing an equation, step 1, 2, 3 and 4, right? After doing that, let us do our balancing of equation. Now here we have to list down the number of elements that are present in a chemical equation. Now as I already told, we will be starting with the metals first, then non-metals, after that halogens, then at the last we will be writing hydrogen followed by oxygen. That way it will help us to complete the balancing of equation in a quick manner. First we will write down metals, then non-metals, then halogens, followed by hydrogen and oxygen. In that way we can finish balancing the equation very quickly, right? We don't want to waste time in balancing the equation going to and fro. Now let us try to balance this equation using that technique of writing metals, non-metals, halogens, hydrogen and oxygen. Here we do not have any metals. We have carbon, we have hydrogen and oxygen. On the LHS and the RHS, what are they? We are going to write down first. Here on the LHS, carbon is 3 and here we have only 1 carbon on the product side. Hydrogen 8 and 2 here, and oxygen is 2 on the LHS. Here it is 2 and 1. So it is total 3. Now which side we have to increase the number of elements or number of atoms we have to here and here and here, right? So more job is there on to the right hand side. We have to follow this order only, that will help us in completing the equation quickly. Let me change color so that you can understand what I am doing here. Now carbon is 3. Let us make here 3 because here on the product side it is only 1. So let us directly go ahead and write 3. Now our carbon problem is sorted out. It is 3 now here. Now let us go ahead and check for hydrogen. Hydrogen is 8. So here on the product side we have only 2. So with what number if we multiply? With 4 if we multiply, it will become 8. So directly go ahead and write 4. right? Whenever we make any change, we have to verify it from the beginning. Again, we'll start from the carbon. Carbon has 3. Here also it is 3. Hydrogen 8, and in the product side also hydrogen are 8. Let's see the last element, that is oxygen. Oxygen is 2. Whereas here in the equation, how many they are there? Now earlier it was 3, but we have made so many changes. So 3 into 2. Here this particular 2 is a subscript for this oxygen. So whenever the subscript is there, we have to multiply. So number of atoms here present are 6 atoms of oxygen. And how many? This 4 applies to hydrogen, 4 applies to oxygen also, plus 4. So total number of oxygen atoms are 10, right? So on the LHS side, we have to increase it. So with 5, if we multiply, it will become 10. 5 into 2 is 10. Now let us go ahead and see all the elements whether they are in the same number, because our step number 4 says verify the equation for the balancing of atoms on both the sides of the equation. So now carbon is 3, here also it is 3, oxygen it is 8, here also 4 2s are 8, no changes have took place. Then oxygen on the LHS 5 into 2 is 10 here, so this number will become 10. On the RHS 3 into 2 is 6 plus 4 is 10. So it is a balanced equation. Let us write down. Now whenever an equation is not balanced, we call it as a skeletal equation. So when you are writing, you have to write down what is a balanced equation and what is a skeletal equation. So let me write down a skeletal equation. What is a skeletal equation which is not balanced? C3H8 plus O2 gives CO2 plus H2O. What is this equation called as? Skeletal equation. So when you are writing, you have to mention this also in your exam. After this, we have already balanced the equation. So let us write down the balanced equation. What is a balanced equation that we have to write? Balanced equation is C3H8 plus, we have made change to oxygen. So it is 5O2 gives 3CO2 plus 4H2O. After you write down, mention that this is a balanced equation. Isn't it simple? Only one logic when you are balancing. Write down, start with metals, then go to non-metals, then to the halogens, later at the end for the hydrogen and oxygen. Let us see few more examples in the next video.